Quick. Hi guys, welcome to the week ahead, a weekly news show starring me, Liam, and Tommy, my co-host.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on episode 3 of the week ahead. Thank you so much for tuning in here.
Yeah, we appreciate your time and listening to us. We'll just get right into it. This is our news show, so nothing too busy about it. I did want to mention real quick, our audio should be a little bit different. It should be a lot louder. So if you have to turn us down, just please turn us down. We had some audio issues at the high end, so it's a little bit easier just to have it a little bit higher so people could always listen and then just turn it down if you need to. First, I'll be covering the weather for today and the rest of the week. Today was pretty nice, a little bit chilly and windy though, but the sun was still out, high of 52 and low of 33, especially probably once it gets cold tonight. We are going to have a little bit of frost throughout the week, especially at night. On Wednesday night, we'll be low of 25, but that's really the only bad thing I see. Kind of like for the gardeners, but we're going to have basically a cloudy week. We're going to have some showers throughout the weekend, which that's fantastic. From Friday to from Friday to Monday, we'll have basically 30 to 50% chance of showers. So that's fun. Have a fun weekend. Tommy, we'll be going over stocks, and we actually have the stocks and the weather below us too.
Okay, so this is just a quick recap of last week's stock. So this is does not include today. So last week the Dow was up 1.27%, 525.13 points. Nasdaq was up 61.50, 0.35%. S&P was up 31.96, 0.57%. And of course, all of these are still down year to date.
And month to date, still everything's still pretty down because we had that big drop at the start of the month. Right?
Yeah.
So that's fun. Hopefully it goes back up. Help out all the 401ks, but probably not. We'll have to see.
We'll have to see, we'll have to wait and see. Those tariffs are going to kick in, and we'll see.
Until it gets rid of them, like the car one. That one was
Yeah.
hilarious because Honda. We were talking about that last week, I think, too. Like how Honda announced they were going to have a new American plant because of those tariffs. But are they going to get rid of that now because he got rid of the tariffs? So there's a
Yeah,
lot of
and good luck
back and forth.
and, and good luck just building a plant. Like snap my fingers and then boom, there's a car plant. Like that's not how it works.
Good point. And we can probably go on our first topic, which is a Tesla Cybertruck. Tommy would be talking about.
So I wanted to start off this show with a little funny bit of news that's been going on. So I wanted to talk about the Tesla Cybertruck recall very briefly. So if you have not heard, the Tesla Cybertruck, the dumpster on wheels, has been recalled. The recall covers nearly all of the Cybertrucks on the road, 46,096 of them. It's been recalled 8 times in the last 15 months, and the reason why this particular recall has been issued is that the trim piece on the A pillar was glued on and falls off, which obviously creates a risk for drivers. So, um, just wanted to give this story as a little pick me up. If you're having a bad day, at least you're not driving a cyber truck. And if you do own a Tesla Cybertruck, I would definitely encourage you to get rid of that thing as soon as possible and buy a real vehicle.
And something that's so crazy to me. First, the trim pieces are metal. It's like the outside metal pieces, if I'm not mistaken. Just getting rear-ended by one could make that go flying, and now that's basically a shard of metal going through the air, speed of a Cybertruck with that force. Um,
Yeah, and,
but
and that's what they said in the AP article. Um, Obviously, this recall was necessary. Like you can't just rear end someone and have a piece of stainless steel, by the way, not good stainless steel, not like the high grade stuff, but like you can't have a piece of stainless steel, just fly out like a lance, and then
yep,
just go on the road and cause danger. So the recall is good. The vehicle itself is trash.
yep. And I also don't want to think that we're just Tesla haters. We kind of are, but especially for Cybertruck, the Cybertruck is one of the worst rollouts of all time. If you're an unbiased car lover, me and Tommy, I say are we're not really biased to Teslas. We're not biased to driving V8s or trucks. But the rollout of that has been horrible. I know people personally that it's been 2 years and they haven't gotten their Cybertruck yet. But
Yeah.
the rollout was first to the most famous people, obviously, even though Elon said that he was doing it like by areas. It was never going to be fair, and like the production, even with COVID, was crazy slow and like crazy late. There's a lot of lies. Whenever the Cybertruck rolled out, a lot of these YouTubers like Doug DeMuro, the Fastlane car I really liked. When they got their first edition Cybertrucks for ones that were $130,000, they didn't have full self driving, which Elon promised. They didn't have rear locking diffs, which they had mechanically. They just didn't have the software to activate them yet. So you got your $130,000 Tesla, and you had to wait months. And it was weird because these YouTubers talk about it. When they roll out the updates, it's like not for everyone. It's staged, and so like some YouTubers were getting their rear locking diffs and could make YouTube videos. Some YouTubers couldn't, and then since like it was such a slow rollout, like a lot of YouTubers got screwed over with like getting that initial hype. Whenever a new car comes out, like everyone's gonna watch those videos for the first 6 months, and then they're gonna forget about it. But if you don't get your Cybertruck that you thought you were getting when everyone else was getting, and not until like 6 months ago, this was a fast lane car. People out of Colorado had this issue. Um,
So
you're out of luck.
I
It's a
I'm
business issue. I'd be suing.
I'm definitely I despise the Cybertruck, and I'm not a fan of Tesla. I'm a big fan of electric vehicles.
Yeah, I agree with
You
that.
know, my family just bought an electric Blazer. You know, I'm pro EV, but I'm anti Tesla. So like,
Hmm.
let me use an analogy here. So let's go back to the French Revolution, okay? You know, they're storming the Bastille, you know, to because they want freedom from monarchy, and that Bastille it symbolized tyranny to them. The Cybertruck is the new Bastille. And
Yeah,
we what the Cybertruck represents, which is just tyranny, the slow the slow decline of our rights. It makes me hate the truck and hate the brand.
well,
But
it's
I
gaudy
love
like the Hummers. Like you're gonna have those like
yeah.
those type of dudes driving them. No offense, but be offended.
Oh yeah, like it's crazy. Like it looks disgusting.
Looks worse than a Hummer H1, and that was a brick. Works than
That
a
was a
Hummer
brick.
H3, and that looked like a bar of soap. So, I mean, it happens, and like even with Elon, like he lies so much. Where like for Cybertruck, he announced before both Chevy and Ford even announced their electric trucks. They announced their electric trucks and had them on the road before Tesla did. So everyone gives Elon
Yeah.
all this stuff, but we're kind of forgetting about a couple things. We have a Cybertruck that was a horrible rollout. The Roadster's coming up, and the actual semi truck's coming out. When the semi truck, like the only like real applicability they're using for it right now is like I think in San Diego and like small ports, like not long distance. So like he's gonna have issues with Tesla, and like what we kind of always realized, people are car people, that like companies like Chevy and Ford will just take over. I mean, Nissan's been making the Leaf for a minute. These people
But
are not
what's
new
crazy
to it.
what's crazy about it too is if we're just talking about this by a business perspective, I'm gonna make some generalizations here, but they're probably true. I think people that are on the left are more likely to buy an electric car than people on the right. I think that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the same people that buy electric vehicles, they don't like Elon Musk. Like, you know, like it's
Yeah,
just insane. You know,
and like
I'd encourage.
living in like certain like redder areas, I've seen people on the right buy Teslas, but it's very rare. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's the typical person on the left who drives one. Um,
Yeah.
so it like they're not. It's gonna be hard to sell. I feel. You know what I mean too.
Yeah. Just I guess all I have left to say about this is you know sell your Tesla, dump your stock, get a different car. Okay, that's my
I agree with
take.
that.
Okay,
I always
you know
called
you can
Elon Howard
quote
Hughes.
me.
Like dump it, man. He's getting to the bad part of Howard Hughes' life. So and his
Who
life
knows?
really.
Maybe that stainless steel's worth something, and you know you can recycle that and something, get a couple bucks out of it. Who knows?
Yeah, but depreciation rates have been horrible. So have fun with that. Like And like some people, I wonder too that like have pre-ordered them. They probably just stopped their pre-order once they realized they was going to depreciate 60 grand once they had the car. Um,
You
so
got you got people that are still waiting for their roadsters. Like you said, the roadster's coming out. I'm not sure, man. Like
no, it ain't.
how long is that?
Not for a while. Everything's delayed now, especially with like all this government stuff he's doing. So like
Yeah,
he's hurting himself because these other car companies are going to be more advanced. And like there's other solutions too. Like we talk a lot, and a lot of people know about like hydrocell and hydropower or hydrogen power. They just call them hydrocells, like little cells you would put in your car. There's other ways we could do besides like fully battery powered cars too. So we'll have to see what the future takes us. I feel, but it's a good story learning about this. Be careful out there. Buy a
yeah.
Blazer, even buy a Mustang, EV. I love those interiors, even though it's a Mustang. I kind of don't care. Um, and like they've been out for years now, so they probably ran through their like most glitches. I think the lyrics beautiful. I'm a Cadillac fan, so once they did that, that was awesome to me. And I've seen them at car shows, and it's a nice car.
I'll, I'll say this. I'd buy a Mitsubishi or a Nissan before I bought a Tesla.
Not saying a lot. Me and Tommy can go in a whole debate about that, but we won't right now. That's crazy. I get what he's saying though. Buy an Altima, a used Altima with 200,000 miles. It'll keep me more safe.
I'd be driving, I'd be driving that thing, and I'd feel happy as a clay. I'm driving that thing, knowing I didn't give Elon a cent.
Are you good to go into our
Okay,
first topic now? Then yeah.
yeah. Let's. I was glad we were able to start the show off with a little bit of a chuckle. So this is our first serious topic here, which is kind of piggybacks off what we talked about last week, which is Senate Bill 1, the Higher Education Destruction Act. So that has unfortunately passed the state House of Representatives. So all of the Democrats and 3 Republicans voted against the bill, but of course it passed 59-34. It still needs to go back to the Ohio Senate for a concurrence vote, so the two bills can match and then can be sent to the governor. The Ohio Senate president has already committed to a concurrence vote. Um, of course, a lot of these people in the state house in Columbus, um, they just totally disregard the will of the people, all of the opposition testimony that was given to them. And they ignored the massive protest outside the state house while that was happening. Um, so it's past the state house. It's going back to the state senate where they're likely to concur, and it will go to Governor Mike DeWine, who we will see what he does. Hopefully he vetoes it. I call on him to veto it, but I don't expect Mike DeWine to do the right thing. So just a quick recap on like what the bill does. It's bad for Ohio students. It bans DEI. It limits class discussion, and like I talked about last week, it limits labor rights. It puts certain restrictions on teachers or professors' ability to strike. So it's all around a bad bill. It's bad for Ohio students. It's bad for Ohio. It's bad for the future of Ohio. So hopefully this does not pass, and make sure that call your state legislators, do something to make sure that you tell them that I don't agree with this. We need good colleges and universities in the state of Ohio.
Agreed. Um, Especially because like I understand with the Trump administration right now, them basically saying if you don't get rid of DEI, we won't give you money. Um, but you never know who the next president will be, and if they're gonna say, hey, universities, you have to do DEI, or we won't give you money, then all the states are gonna flop. Like I kind of hate all this, like just because there's a new president and new stuff coming. Like we don't have to have like massive change in colleges. Colleges kind of like have always been like more liberal areas. One because of education, and one because of the diversity at colleges. So we definitely need to keep that.
Yeah, it's interesting, because if this becomes law, and it's not repealed or challenged, it would still be on the books, in the next administration. So like, obviously the Trump administrations, they're going after Columbia, they're going after other colleges and universities, with their misguided efforts to influence the education system in the United States. But if this becomes law, and it stays on the books, um, that's gonna transcend any sort of future administration that hopefully, has more than two brain cells.
Yep, exactly. And like I definitely think the schools know what they're doing, because
Oh yeah,
it's obviously like not they're not putting the crazies in charge of what we should be doing. They put the people that know what they should be doing, and a lot of schools do know sociology, do know psychology, do know a lot about our history more than we do. So those people should kind of make the decisions. So like Columbia, Penn, I think Penn was one of them. Um, some of our oldest schools, even being that old and having traditions, they still are modernized. And then
yeah, for sure. You want educators to be leading the education. You don't want out of touch corrupt politicians in Columbus telling educators what they can and cannot do. Excuse me.
oh, no problem. And our next topic is actually a national topic, but it's still education related, which we all think is important. There's a big debate happening right now. It seems like on the right and the left, where like the right just wants to not stop, but like limit education, especially for rich people on the right, because they could send their kids to private schools. Or a lot of people think homeschooling's okay, and I'm not 100% against homeschooling. I just think that you definitely need to socialize a kid, and I've seen it personally. If you homeschool a kid and don't socialize them, it's way worse than about anything I've seen in a public school system. How that kid
Yeah,
turns
no,
out. So,
yeah, no, I agree with that fully. So let's see here. So our second topic for today is all about Trump orders the closure of the Department of Education. So from NBC News, I'm sure everyone has heard a lot of this by now. Trump signs an executive order to begin implementing the closure of the Department of Education, quote, once and for all, end quote. The executive order, it essentially just orders, the winding down of the agency itself. Any sort of formal closure would require congressional approval. Um, and this raises a lot of concerns for a lot of different people, a lot of different families, and a lot of different students. So, it upends federal student loans, civil rights enforcement, to make sure that, everyone's has equal access to education and is treated fairly and justly and allowed to live their life with the full human dignity that everyone deserves. It affects poor and disabled students. And and of course the agency manages $1.6 trillion in student loans, and um, it gives billions to K through 12 schools, um, and some of that billions through K through 12 school, and gives a significant amount of money to students with disabilities. Department of Education has no say in curriculum, and of course, the student loans are going to be transferred to other agencies. So there's a lot of questions, going on right now of, what exactly this entails. One thing that I'm certain of, and I'm certain of, is it's not going to be good. Um, the student loan system right now, of course, needs reform, and but even if we take reform, we're not talking about reform right now. Just the sheer act of transferring it over to, another agency. These processes, these systems that are set up are highly complex. There's a lot of fear going on right now of, like, hey, I made 49 out of 50 payments. Is that record going to be reflected in the new agency that's supposed to take this over? Um, there's also a lot of questions about like student loan forgiveness. So like the public student loan forgiveness program that was implemented a while ago and was really brought in to relevancy by President Joe Biden. There's a lot of questions on that because they're transferring these loans, and you have to make a number of certain payments on your loans, and you have to work in an eligible job for a certain amount of time, and that's getting transferred to a different agency other than the Department of Education. But in order to forgive those loans, only the um, only the secretary of the Department of Education can do so. So there's a lot of questions right there. Of course, a lot of questions like I was talking about with, what's going to happen with, students with disabilities, poor and disabled students. What's going to happen to these grants that the Department of Education gives to um, states, and what's so crazy about this is is I'll put on my fiscal hat here, my fiscal conservative hat here, and try to look at this. But the fact remains, regardless, you're trying to cut the deficit, you're trying to do other things. The Department of Education is the smallest cabinet level agency. It makes up 4% of the U.S. budget,
Mm.
with $286 billion. Like it's not a large federal entity. That's not to say that the work it does is not extremely important. It absolutely is, especially as it comes to poor and low income students. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just terrible what's going on, and there's no real good reason to do it. Like I said, there's no um the fiscal hit on the budget is not a lot, and curriculum, which is what you hear these people talk about all the time, is curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's controlled by the states anyway. The Department of Education has no stake in local curriculum. So it's just crazy, and it's just another blunder and another travesty of the Trump administration when we're 2 months into it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And well, there's a lot to go here because first I should probably talk about students with disabilities because it's interesting because I feel like growing up in our day and age, we kind of saw the starting of actual decent special needs programs for students. At least I saw in Gerard. Um, Back in the day, it was kind of tough, and even growing up in McDonald, which was a village, I've seen some of Forest environments for special needs people. That's just way different, And when you go to a decent school, a lot of them don't have regular lockers; they have keys. But even McDonald doesn't have that. So that's not really ADA compliant. um,
Yeah.
Hopefully they fix that. But that's a tell. That's a tell from almost 10 years ago now, which kind of is telling of McDonald themselves. So some certain schools, there's certain schools in Ohio, I bet, that obviously don't have great special needs programs. But that's something that is just so disheartening because obviously the states can help out, but they're definitely using most of the yearly money, the yearly $50 million, which I believe we have here, which is what the department gives to the states for students with disabilities. And it's
Yeah,
not just the
it's
students; it's for their programs, so they have better teachers, they have better classrooms that are more suited for themselves.
it's crazy, if some student has a developmental disability, or they have ADHD, or they have something even more serious, there's just certain things in life that are undebatable. You know I was just dealing with this today. Like, people should have the ability to get an education, live as their true selves, and be able to do whatever they want to do as long as they're not hurting other people. Okay? These are sort of basic sort of principles that need to be respected, and it's just crazy that they're not. Like, the idea of that, we would cut money to people with developmental disabilities and thus denying them an adequate education. That is truly just horrible, and it's, to me, along with other issues, it's just truly an undebatable issue. Like, this is how it has to be.
Yeah. Um, and I feel like the only mindset on the right is that I just want to have a kid with disabilities, but that's not how it works. You could be perfectly healthy, never smoke cigarettes, never do a bad drug in your life, and take care of your kid, do all the prenatal care, and it could still just happen by chance or by environment. We've been finding out throughout the years.
Yeah.
So, we have to take care of our kids, and it's also something we kind of need to be doing more. So we can't really be cutting at the same time, and especially we're talking about too, with stuff oh man, like no man left behind, like no kid left behind, um, and a lot of these programs that actually help out um, poorer kids, which is kind of what we need um, right now too, and like, especially civil rights as well. So like that means like you could do weird stuff in schools for certain kids of different races, and let's say now like if you're a closed enrollment school and not open enrollment, you could technically say like, hey, we're not going to turn this kid in, because of race. Is that possible, Tommy, law wise? Even though like they can't,
I can't
even though I know they
I
wouldn't be
can't
saying
comment.
that.
I can't comment on that. I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, good point. Um, but like that's something that I felt could be interesting, and it's probably just like for bullying because like a lot of these DEI programs, people who don't understand empathy or even DEI themselves don't really understand that like this actually helps bullying a ton, and that people do get bullied because of sex, race, just being different. So a lot of these talks and like these things in schools, we need. This is kind of like if you have a topic, but cutting the Department of Education as a whole kind of hurts that as a federal standpoint. Because even schools should have some federal oversight. Alabama shouldn't be like just be able to do Alabama and Louisiana, just Louisiana. Some of these states are bad at education, so they're going to need some help. And even I bet the federal government learns from the states that are good at education, which I'm guessing like
Yeah,
Massachusetts.
and education is just so important to lifting people out of poverty.
Good
And
point.
there's a
Yeah.
big problem in Ohio where you know where our local schools are funded primarily by property taxes. Okay. And if you live in a lower income neighborhood, your property valuation is going to be lower, so therefore the school is going to have less money. And just overall, and Ohio has been operating on an unconstitutional school funding scheme for our whole life, and they just never fixed it. But
Mm.
what what we need to do is we need to invest in education, because education, it improves people's lives. It lets them be productive. It lets them, lift helps them get out of poverty. It's one of those things that is so important to making people's lives better. And it's just a shame, and it's just truly disgusting that this is what they're doing. They're cutting the Department of Education. And um
I agree,
I
man.
guess, all we can hope for is, uh in 4 years, there's something still left to build back up.
And like I've noticed, people blame schools a lot for societal issues. So we do need to reform schools, but need to reform our society a little bit as well. It's not just 100% of a school thing. You know what I mean? Like we're we're realizing the same parents that blamed the teachers instead of the students are now blaming the schools as a whole for how their students and how their kids ended up rather than themselves. And it's a parental thing. It's a little bit of everything, but primarily it's a parental thing. But we do need to reform schools, like we're saying a little bit. But most, like to me, most of that is just making it better for everyday life for everyone, having better ways for. And people complain that you know, they don't do enough for the trades. But when I was going to school, we had our TCTC or local county funded, which I'm guessing that's probably also federally funded. I don't know if those uh, community centers, you know what I mean, like TCTC, MCTC, or whatever it's called, technical centers are matched by federal funds. But like they came and talked to us and like definitely pushed people to go there and learn the topics. They bought pamphlets with every type of subject they had. Um, but some of it's just like for everyday living and getting back to the basics of some of it. And like COVID's definitely a big issue with that, but that's just another topic.
Like I think where something schools need to get better at is bullying prevention. And I understand that might actually be an impossible task. I do understand that,
Mm-hmm.
but I think if and I don't even pretend to have a solution to this, but if there was some way, where there could be less and less bullying in school, and everyone just kind of, just accepts one another for who they are, and people are making friends, they're having fun, they're getting an education, that would be a major benefit, not only for the schools but for society as well. And
Yeah.
the only other thing I'd like to comment on about this topic is diversity in education is good. Diversity in not only among the students and among the teachers, but also amongst the different subjects that people study. So
Hmm.
if you want to go to trade school, that is perfectly acceptable, and I fully support that. You know, if you want to go, to YSU, or go to, and then study to become a lawyer or a doctor, or get a PhD, that's perfectly good too. I think ultimately what just needs to happen is, people should be empowered to be able to live as their true selves, get the education that they want, go into the career they want, and just be happy and live in a society that accepts them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a good solution to that might be like, because we care about um, like all these subjects. Why don't we just make one class like sociology since a young age? You teach kids like sociology and just a little bit of psychology and like loving everyone and why you should like make that a whole class.
Yeah,
Um, we got like 8 periods at least in Gerard. We didn't have study halls, but maybe it was 8 periods. Gym's important. We have all these different subjects. Like to me, maybe because like if you're smart, like I kind of was, like you kind of fall out. I feel like your last senior semester of actually taking high school classes. Um, Maybe spread it out like in college, where like you don't have to take an English, math, science every semester, but replace one of those with more sociology based classes. Because the truth is, people aren't going to be always using English, science, math every day, but they're always going to be talking with people every day. And
yeah,
I kind of think maybe if you teach those kids at a young age that like those things are important, that maybe that'll help with bullying overall. Um,
yeah. And even if it's, I like the class idea, but even if it was just a half a day assembly, you know, again, I don't even know if this is possible. I'm just talking.
mm,
But just learning how the effects of bullying, and stuff like that. I think that would be tremendously helpful. I really do.
Now I got
You
I got I
know,
got I got a
um,
quick serious question for you, Tommy. Did you like the not bowling? Sorry, the assemblies that go into assemblies in high school?
oh no, I
Oh,
did
see, no
not
one
like
likes
them.
that. So no, no, man, we ain't going to
No.
assemblies.
Okay, and, I will.
Or maybe
I'll
do
tell
it,
you.
but like give them incentives, like give them pizza and food, and be like, all right, this is
Yeah,
gonna be a good open time. We're not just gonna be lecturing you all day.
I'm sure it's. I'm sure there's a way to make it fun, but also informative. And
Mm-hmm.
you said you didn't have study halls in Gerard. We definitely had study halls in Champion. I had my YouTube app on, a little AirPod in. I was chilling. I was chilling. We definitely did have those in Champion.
That's fun. That's fun. And like I feel like I don't know, maybe like that maybe that's needed too. If kids just have a break for like one period. Um,
Yeah.
you don't really have recess in high school, so and lunch food sucks sometimes. Gerard had nice lunch food, so I was kind of blessed in that aspect. That's why I was bigger back then. That stuff was good.
I I left before lunch. In Champion in your junior
Nice.
and senior year, they let you do early release. You didn't have to stay the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
You could leave, and if you got lucky, it depended because there was three different lunch periods, okay? Like A, B, and C. And if you had C lunch, you could leave after class before lunch because you got like enough time in.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had A lunch, you have to stay for lunch and then stay an extra 45 minutes after lunch.
Oh,
I
that
was lucky and
sucks.
I got that C lunch, so I'm driving my Pontiac G6 down the road. I'm going to the hot dog shop, getting my own lunch.
Heck yeah. Yeah, Jordan was only like that our senior year, so at least for me, so that was nice. I like doing that. I'm gonna take a nap and go back to robotics, but no, man, Jordan had some good lunches, man. Them lunch ladies are nice.
Got some Got to go home, stop at McDonald's, turn on that 360, and just chillax until the next day when I'm back at it.
Yeah, lots of video games were played back then. Fun times. Um, and then our next topic, which is our last local topic, um, is about like basically I'll be going over some quick facts about, and Tommy will be giving like his input about, but we kind of bouncing off each other. Is out in Howland, the route. I think they're actually like both. You can. I'm gonna call a state route what a state route is, which is basically State Route 82 and also State Route 46. Now one is a highway, one's more of still a highway, but not actually like embankment highways. Sorry about that. Um, but basically, State Route 82 goes over State Route 46. Um, State Route 82 goes off Route 80. I don't know if you know highway routes, but any like a lot of routes have like congruent numbers or go into each other. Um, but it's a construction project that they started in summer of 2023, and they'll be ending it in fall of 2026. So we still got about a year and a half left of them doing construction, but I believe both of the bridges are done, and most of it's just the underwork of a new interchange way. But they're basically making an old Clover interchange, which is the typical highway interchanges, into I kind of call it an S-bend, but I think it's a diamond interchange or a diverging diamond interchange. You'll see them sometimes in Columbus. Have you ever seen stuff like that in Columbus?
No, I have to go down to Columbus like 5 6 times a year, and I've never seen it. But I also I don't know, would I know like if I'm driving, would I know like, oh, that's a divergent diamond interchange? Like if I wasn't an engineer, would I just know it's something's off? Or because I
Yeah,
may
I could.
have, but I
Yeah.
but I don't remember.
Oh, I got a good idea. I'm gonna share my screen over here on Discord so you could see it too, and then they'll be able to see it. But over here, bang. Come on, Discord. I know how to share screens. Thank you. Um, so over here's a photo of it. This is kind of what it looks like with 82 below it, but really 82 is above it. It's kind of grayed out. So it's like when, like, let's say I'm coming from this right side, like I go to the left and then go back right, and I'll be showing a YouTube video as well. Um,
I've actually seen that YouTube video. That it's a really good video. I think it's from ODOT itself, and it's like an animation of the of them driving through it and stuff.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's like W dot, but the same thing. I know ODOT has one on their websites. I probably should have grabbed it. It might be their socials. But really, what this is actually really going to help out with, and you can see right here is this big parking lot. I actually used to work here. This is a Lowe's parking lot. If I'm not mistaken, there's like the um, fortune teller lady right here, right by the highway. So you could always get your fortunes told if you want. But you could also see like they're improving sidewalks, which they really actually need to do for this area anyway, and they kind of need to do in all of Niles. But it's an ODOT project, so it's nice that ODOT would do this. And then so basically this will also cause a lot of these. It's basically going to cause like a forest who in the mall complex to put in sidewalks all the way down 46, and they should really put sidewalks all the way to 46 to where Bass Pro Shops is, and hopefully they end up doing that. And then if the city of Howland, village of Howland, and township of Howland, are good with it and smart with their money, they would be putting a sidewalk from 46 all the way down to it's not Howland Wilson, but that intersection of 46, like Howland Corners area, because if you can kind of like make Howland and Niles more interconnected to each other, that'd be really nice. Um, but a nice thing about this interchange is, and not that many people notice, but a lot of people get afraid is that it actually eliminates two red lights. So it makes it where you could always, and it also makes this where you could always get on and get off without stopping. So right now, a Clover interchange, I think I can go down to show you what we have now, is this. Now this is rotated 90 degrees from what we saw above. So now we see Route 82 going horizontal, and we see Route 46 going perpendicular, vertical or up and down. See Lowe's over here. There's little like that Huntington, I think, there's over shops, and that other places they're building around here. That actually looks like the staging area for all the construction right here. But right now we see that basically the overhead bridge is done, which is that they wanted to do first, and now they're working on like these areas to kind of make like for new on and off ramps, which we see up here. It's just kind of weird that's rotated, but we see like these little kind of like flowered off tapered areas. That's what they'll be making right here and right here. But before, this area was a normal interchange where like you'd just be going straight up, and they would have a stoplight right here for people that can get off here, so you don't get hit and you don't hit people coming off. You go straight. They used to have a red light right here, right at the bridge, and I think they had one right after, but it was either 2 or 3 red lights. But basically, kind of like how you understand it is, a lot of the red lights that they had before were red lights both directions. So like you were stopping up basically people getting off and on the highway. Or now they would be going in a flow-like manner, just straight off going off. Like if you're trying to get to the mall from like the top of Warren, going 82 south, you would just get off and you would yield. They do have that now, but the nice part is now if you go left off 82, you go straight on and just keep going. You have one red light right here. Same with this one. You have one red light right here. This one will be coming, no red light. This one will be coming, red light right here. No, not another red light till right here. So they eliminate one red light going basically on 46, which I always liked because like my dad lives in Howland. If I'm ever at the mall, you got to hit like 3 red lights going through here. They changed that now to 2, which is really nice. And like this doesn't even technically need to be a red light, so we'll probably have to see how they do it. But really the nice part about it is like the highways. So now if I'm going off, like I said, 82 that way, I can go on 82 without a red light, go off 82 without a red light. Same with the south end of 82. If you're going northbound and coming off from northbound, you can take a right and go right into Howland. You don't have to hit a red light. If you're trying to go to the mall, which sometimes I'll be doing from coming from Girard, you only have to hit one red light now. One before, if you were coming from North 82 to the mall, you would be hitting 2 red lights in a normal interchange. So that's nice. We're going to show a video. I just kind of forgot. I don't remember if it likes it when you show YouTube videos.
I think it's fine.
Okay, we'll have to see.
I think it's just like Netflix and like F1 and stuff like that.
Yeah, the full screen stuff. But you see here what I'm talking about, where we only have 2 red lights on each end. So right here, right here, right here, right here. So now when the signals change, you still only have 2 red lights. The arrows of the cars, for sure, these circles in the video, were the lights themselves. So it's something that I'm pretty sure like computer modeling figured out over time to basically make it more efficient. And like since ODOT does it in Columbus, areas have way more people, like we know it'll work with us. The only issue is that people just don't like chains, and the other issue is that you do have to move side to side. You know what I'm saying? Like I guess horizontal when normally you just go straight, you wouldn't have to move that much. Even now though, like you would have to move anyway. Because of how the red lights were situated with a bridge, there was pylons in the middle. If you were going up and down, going on 46 from Vermont to Howland, you would have to merge a little bit right anyway. So it is merging, but it's just more merging now. And people kind of always get afraid when you cross lanes. But if everyone trusts each other, you're fine. So we just have to trust these Ohesans to drive, and us Ohesans are the best drivers.
So I think this is just one of those things, like I'm looking at this diagram right now, and I'm waiting for my bar results. I have a JD, so I already don't like the numbers like 82, 46. Numbers scare me. But I think this is just one of those things where it's just gonna make a lot of sense once you do it once. You know what I mean? Like, and I know ODOT, they got a lot of competent people there, and it's just I think it's just gonna be one of those things where, it's gonna be um the signage is gonna be very good, and it might be weird the first time you do it, but like in 20 years from now, people like, what? Like that was a thing? Like what? Like, like I think people just gotta see it and do it. And I think people are crashing out when they see these diagrams and stuff like that. Like everyone
Yeah.
just needs to take a deep breath, say a self-affirmation, and then just um wait for the work to be done and then just do it and you'll probably like it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just like people hate construction, so they'll always complain about that, and like they always hate change, and like it's gonna take the same amount to do like it normally anyway. I mean, it might take 6 months longer to do a little bit differently. Maybe not even that. Like construction, one but excavators and the construction guys are out there. It doesn't really matter how much a difference it is. When you're on a job like this is a massive job. So like people just complain because of a change, but then they always complain that there's potholes and that the roads are always bad. So like you got to pick a side. You know what I mean? People are just like complaining at that point. We do have to repair. Like some of our infrastructure is so outdated. Like it would take generations to repair it. So we gotta like pick and choose and go at
Abs-
one way at a time.
Absolutely. And, and the previous administration passed that bipartisan infrastructure act, and don't get me wrong. I get it. I get it. I'm a driver too. Like, I don't like construction, but like, I like the fact that, we're improving our infrastructure. That's overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
And the fact that, that people are employed to do that kind of work, it's giving money to working families, so they can, you know, live and have the dignity of work, So it's overwhelmingly positive,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just one of those things I think people need to get used to, and people just need to accept that, some things take time and some things take construction work.
Yep.
Now, I know you're a big fan of those steel plates.
Steel plate on a road. Yeah, I do a lot of water lines and sanitary lines, so that's what we're used to for a steel plate on that bad boy.
Yeah.
Go back to the job tomorrow. Just don't hit them hard. I do not go over a steel plate over 5 miles per hour. Now I am in a Cadillac like sedan, so you can get bouncy. But and what oh god, what else was I gonna say? One thing I really do like, even Akron. I drive to Akron. Akron's a nice place. It's gonna look way better. Like old Ohio infrastructure, those bridges are so ugly. They're so basic. Like a lot of other states, you go to other places in America, and they do a lot more of it, and we're starting to do that now. So that's nice. Um, but now I think we can go to our last topic, our national
Yep.
topic. Last topic for which Tommy will be starting off. Oh no, actually I will. I'm sorry. I don't want to do
You
that
can,
to you,
yeah, you
Tommy.
can start it.
Um, so this is basically gonna cover Medicare, Medicaid chip cuts. Um, Now chip is that for house stuff?
CHIP is the Children Health Insurance Program.
Okay. Because like I got a city council meetings, and there's also like a program. I think it's an Ohio program though, for like houses that they talk about. But when I looked up chip when they were talking about it, that's what came up. So a lot so House Republicans basically want to cut $880 billion from the social safety net, which is basically impossible doing without cutting Medicare, Medicaid, or any part of the chips, which he's just saying child health insurance plan, right?
Children Health Insurance Program.
Program. Okay, not plan. All right. But if I'm not mistaken, that's basically just like the program to help people get health insurance for their children. Is
Yeah,
it free or is it
yeah.
just cheaper?
Uh, I'm not sure to be honest with you. It's a program that is several decades old. It was championed by Secretary Clinton, and it has been wildly successful at providing health insurance to low-income children.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. 'Cause I know for definitely a while I had like Care Source, so Ohio insurance, but I didn't know if that was from CHIP or if that's from just straight up
No,
ACA
it's
Obamacare.
no, it's one of those things where like there's Medicaid, and Medicaid is administered through the state of Ohio through companies like CareSource and stuff like that. So it's there's a lot of different programs out there with different names, and some of them are related, some of them aren't.
Mm. Um, but basically, Ooh. So since and this is kind of interesting. The next topic I'm gonna be talking about because like for the past couple years, Republicans as a whole saying for a long time that they weren't gonna touch certain safety nets, like certain safety net, social safety nets like Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. They fought about it at Biden's State of the Union when Biden mentioned it. I remember that, and they were all freaking out about it. But basically, now the GOP wants to cut it in a way that does not specifically mention cutting the social safety net, but instead mandates cuts in such a high amount that the cuts must come from the social safety net. Now, that's a lot of wording, but basically, it means kind of how I see it is that they already knew what numbers to hit to cut these programs, and they were told to cut those numbers. You can cut spending, but I feel like whenever you like let's say I was going to out to buy a car, and I go, honey, my wife, I'm gonna buy a car. I have 20 grand. Well, I go out to buy a car with 20 grand, and now I have 0 grand, and I'm like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, um, what happened here? I thought I had 20 grand. But she's like, well, I wanted to make sure it wasn't actually 20 grand. We haggled it, but it was actually zero. So now I don't get a car. So like they're basically telling you like without telling you you're gonna get screwed over on this. And I kind of see it as like kind of like if we want to talk about law, kind of like premeditated murder, where like they premeditate like they already knew the number to cut for program, so they would already just tell them a number or that number higher, or you know what I mean. So it's kind of hard. Like $880 million is a lot, or sorry, $1 billion is a lot of money. If I'm not mistaken, don't we spend like 1.2 to like 1.7 trillion every year on it?
I don't have the exact number in front of me, but to go back to like these cuts, like the way I look at it is, so you have I'm just making these numbers up just for the sake of an example. So let's say that there's a government agency that administers these programs, and they spend $250 million on Medicare, and they spend $250 million on Medicare, on Medicaid, excuse me. So let's say then Congress says that they don't mention, hey, you got to cut Medicare and Medicaid, but they just say, hey, you got to cut $400 million. Like, like inevitably, it's gonna have to come from one or both of those programs. So
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing is very simple, actually. It's
Mm-hmm.
just this sort of like sly politicking that they're doing, which is disgusting because it's
Mm-hmm.
it's people's benefits.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think I googled it when we were talking about it. Don't never cite me, but let's say like that's for range. It's 1.2 to 1.7. That's more than half. If it's 1.2, that's like 66% of it. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, if you're gonna tell someone to cut something that much, like just like you're saying, if it's 80% of what the actual programs are, just wait. Just like to me, it's a very dumb move. It's a wait and see move. You know what I mean? There's a reason why like Republicans
yeah,
fought, and it's interesting why they're finally going that way. Like when it affects people, they're not going to care that they never said actually cut Medicare and Medicaid. Like they're going to do
yeah,
the research and say, oh, they told them to cut 400 or 880 billion dollars, and they only had 1.2 trillion or whatever, and they're going to be like, this is why. And I like it would probably be one of the biggest shots in the foot. The cuts would affect care for like 16 million people, exactly 15.9. I like rounding sometimes. That's a lot of people in America. um,
yeah.
that's almost 5% of our population. If I'm not mistaken, we have 300 million people. 16 million of
And, and
that.
I've heard again there's so many different programs out there. So, I wrote down that 15.9 million. That was like one of the top line pieces of information from one of these articles that I read. But,
Mm-hmm.
even in the article, like in the same article, it's mentioning, you know, different numbers and stuff. So I would view that as just probably the low water mark. It's going to affect a significant number of people, millions and millions and millions of people if this goes through.
Yeah.
And to go back to the sort of why they're not naming these programs is it's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen Speaker Mike Johnson talking to the press about it. They say it doesn't mention Medicare. It doesn't mention Medicare. They're lying.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing that just for the very simple reason of they need that talking point because they know that these sorts of cuts, um, particularly with Medicare, but also Medicaid and CHIP, but particularly Medicare, um, they know that it is very, 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 very unpopular to
Yeah.
do this.
And they've been
And
talking
it's
about
I,
themselves for years now. Like what?
yeah, like you mentioned earlier, in uh, one of President Biden's State of the Union addresses, he said, I won't let you cut it, and they're like, boo, we never
Marjorie
said
Taylor
we're gonna
Greene.
cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like boom, couple years later, boom, new administration, we're cutting it, we're
Mhm.
cutting it. It's just, and sure, they're trying to not name them, for political reasons, but the result's going to be the same if this, passes.
Exactly. And like I don't know how you could even like defend this. Like it seems like it's like these aren't the cuts you're looking for. Like they're gonna try to like use Jedi mind tricks on us, like they're Boeing engineers on the FAA. But that's not really how everything works out in America, especially once it affects people. I think, and it could be a privilege thing, but like maybe people don't realize, like even with a crazy American capitalistic health system that's horrible, mostly privatized, how nice some of these like care source and Medicare and Medicaid programs are for people. There's a lot of people I know, even my age, that don't have like actual insurance. They have to use for state insurance. So people don't
Yeah,
really get how it affects them. It's definitely going to affect special needs people and other people who with DD who get help from Medicare and Medicaid. All depending on the states, but a lot of these states they get match fundings from the federal government. Um, Not that many people notice. Unlike the federal government, each state needs to have a balanced budget every year, and I thought they couldn't go in debt, if I'm not mistaken, right, Tommy?
I don't know.
Okay, that's how I thought it was. Like they balance their budget. That's what I was told. So if they do have to do that, and like they get like massive funding taken away from Medicare and Medicaid, like it's gonna be hard for them to balance their budget. Now we're really gonna see the effects on roads because, like, if people want health care, we're gonna have to get away from roads and other type of public works. OPWC, Ohio Public Works Commission, helps out a lot of projects. I've seen it firsthand, and I see it all around my city and areas, from water lines to roadways, sanitary. So it's definitely going to affect the states if they get cut as well. Um,
I jump in here for a minute.
yep.
So, so what a lot of people don't understand is it's true that the states administer Medicaid, for instance. There's Ohio Medicaid, there's Pennsylvania. They're all called different things. But these programs would not exist without federal funding.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Hook, line, and sinker. Like these programs would not exist without federal funding, and it's going to affect the most vulnerable people in our communities, and it's just sad. And you were talking earlier about like you said, like how do you justify this? And how they're going to justify it is very simple. They're going to say we have to reduce deficit spending. Okay, but what I have on here is and this was reflected in the articles, and this is reflected in everything that the GOP does, is they want to cut your benefits so they can give tax breaks to their rich friends. Okay? So all they are doing, we live in a country with tremendous income inequality because of stuff like this. They are taking away benefits from poor and working families. So again, people like Elon Musk don't have to pay an extra 5% on their top marginal tax bracket. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they are what they are doing. It's very simple. Is they're just redistributing the limited amount of wealth that is still present in working families, and they're trying to take that and give it to their friends.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they just say deficit spending. But it's true if you cut these programs, it will reduce the deficit. But what they do is they accompany these cuts with tax breaks with a delusional belief that a tax break for the rich will lead them to invest in the economy. That
Yeah,
doesn't
more
that
trickle
doesn't
down
happen.
has never happened so far
Right.
yet.
Right. So that's what they're doing. They're cutting, redistributing wealth,
Hmm.
and and they'll lie to you. They'll say this is about deficit spending. It's not. It's not
And like
because
it's gonna
all
hurt
of
the
that's
deficit
all.
more later on.
Yeah.
One of the best things to help out any economy is a healthy population. And that
Yeah.
also means money wise, and whenever you actually get them healthy through stuff like Care Source, ADA, ACAX, Obamacare Acts, that they can get health care, they can save more money. So you're kind of knocking two birds with one stone here. But if you definitely think it's going to like reduce deficit now, like Tommy's saying with the cuts, Trump has done this his first term. He cut corporate tax rates, and some of
Yeah.
the top line taxes and tax the middleman more a little bit down the line. But definitely with COVID and some of Biden's COVID spending, and like we're talking about, we definitely agree with infrastructure. But you can't like have Trump's crazy spending and Biden's spending and saying, okay, we're just going to stop completely. Um, you could definitely cut a little bit, but not cut off your whole leg, just if your toes messed up. And I kind of
This
feel like
this
that's
is
what we're doing right now.
yeah. This is like I say. This is not about spending. This is about, hey, we're going to cut your benefits. Go look over here. Oh, and by the way, Elon Musk is looting the treasury behind your back, and you're going to
Yeah.
pay more for your healthcare. You know, it's very, very simple. But people need to know that. They need to know what's really going on.
Yep.
And and I like what you said too about um, if let's just talk about like the workforce for a moment here. I didn't even think of that. That's a very good point. We need people to be healthy. Like let's just say we just want to talk about um productivity and GDP growth. Let's just limit our discussion there. I don't look at things just in terms of productivity and GDP growth, but for the sake of this little segment, we'll just look at it in that way. So you need your workers to be healthy to work.
Yep.
So what if that's all you care about? Um, this is not smart either, even under that non under that lens.
Yeah. No, I agree. And like it's interesting, like America's a melting pot, and like we're supposed to like be innovative, but we shouldn't be like an actual melting pot where people just come here to like melt themselves health wise and then burn out for America or you know what I mean? Because like if we can't say like we can't replace ourselves or even people here if they're unhealthy. That's just not how it works. Like we need to actually work on ourselves as a society and just like especially for children and people with disabilities. If someone's disabled, like they should not have to worry about work and like literally getting a
Yeah.
job if they're fully disabled. So this could
Yeah,
affect
no,
a
I,
lot of
I
people, and they're gonna hurt themselves way more than they think.
yeah, no, I completely agree to that. That's why I was like saying like expressly like I don't look at this stuff just like in terms of GDP growth and productivity, but people they need to be happy and healthy,
Yeah.
and they need to have safe working conditions. It's not like we shouldn't live in a society where, you get 4 hours of sleep, and you go to work and you work 60 hours a week, and like that's not good. That's not healthy.
Yeah.
That may increase GDP growth, but we need to care about people as well.
And like they're seeing out with other countries. I know Japan has a major suicide burnout rate issue at work. They have people that die
Yeah,
at work sometimes because they work so hard. The cultures. We definitely need I definitely like what you're saying, kind of as a whole, um, more healthier people. So and like to work for that. Like this, that's
absolutely.
something I just learned in like sociology in college. Um, and like kind of like doing like water engineering. Obviously, like one great thing about America, everyone, I think it's a privilege thing, is that like we forget that like some of these regulations and these federal laws and federal spending have given us the cleanest water out of any industrialized country right now. And also, we should kind of follow that with the best health. We should follow that with the best air and like best environments for us to live and prosper as people. This is one way, just like with the deregulation of the EPA they're trying to do right now, that hurts that. And I feel like a lot of people that voted for this didn't realize the can of worms they were opening. And I know like a lot of people, especially us, take politics seriously, but I kind of noticed throughout the years there's people that take politics as more like as a drama or just don't take it seriously, and you kind of do, because it is going to affect your bottom line in the end of the day. It can affect people in your family. Like I'm saying, personally, I know people who voted for Trump who this will affect them if, like, let's say care source got removed for people under my
Yeah.
age or our age, Tommy, with
Yeah.
kids. And it's like, I don't think you thought this through. Like, if this is a lot of money. I know people that pay $300 to $500 for their health insurance, for family health insurance. So you got to be careful about it. I mean, be grateful for what you got and what the state helps out with and what the federal government helps out with. Because, like, for a lot of us, it's let's see a return on investment. And this is definitely a return on investment that helps out us and people around us. We got mental health crises. Everyone says they love to say they care about mental health. Even people on the right say that now. And, they don't want people to hurt themselves and stuff like that. But this is how you start, is actually by giving them a proper health care. So,
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
else on
No,
your mind about this, Tom?
no, it's just so sad that, this is what it's coming to, and just keep an eye on this subject because I have a very good feeling this is gonna, you know, be a reoccurring thing. It's making its way through. They've been dreaming about doing this for years, and just keep an eye on it. Make sure, you let them know that, hey, this is not what we signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what we signed up for. We need to preserve our social safety net and not be cruel and not be mean to people that is reflected in like actions like this. So that's all I have to say about this.
I agree. And like if I'm seeing where even people on the right upset with people on the right now with this kind of stuff, or people with the state house and trying to control, like we talked about last week. Was it House Bill 2? Was like 680? I forget, but for 50, it may have been House Bill 56 with taking the tax revenue from marijuana away from the communities, local communities,
Yeah.
giving them all to the state house. A lot of people are upset about that, and they're kind of like, I wish I had my paper with me. Um, Basically,
No,
kind
it's
of we talked about too. Like they're always going to introduce bills. So like even that new bill we talked about, they talked about at Georgia City Council. They're basically changing it where like after 5 years, for cities get no tax money. So they're trying to make it where either now or eventually they take all that tax money from the local revenues.
yeah, that's another story to keep an eye on too because there's so many there's so many different proposals right now that they're making its way through state government when it comes to that, and it's we'll just have to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, I think the midterms will be very interesting if they go through a lot of this stuff that they lied about, and like we talked about, they could be like, hey, it's a Jedi mind trick, it's not happening, but their people will be seeing it happening, so that'll be fun.
Yep.
Well, I hope everyone had a great night and a relaxing night. Um, if you guys have any comment or feedback, please put it in the comments. Please subscribe if you like our content and like the video as well. Anything on your end, Tommy?
Thank No, no, just thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back next week at 8:30.
Yep. See you guys next week. We'll also be here on Thursday for our sports show and Sunday for our healthy life show. Have a great week, everybody.
Have a good one. Thank you for listening.